Everything started simply because they wanted to invest in real estate here in our area. They bought a house. I asked the lender in a phone call, is she ready? Can she move forward with purchasing an investment? And she said, oh my gosh, that's the cleanest file I've ever had. She shocked me. I was like, oh, that's my friend. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to present my best friend, Nelsy, and her awesome husband, Chris. And today we're gonna keep it simple. We are talking about finance. And the reason why I chose this awesome couple is because they're just so impressive to me. They are your everyday next door millionaire. You would just never know, just the way they handle their finances is very, very impressive to me. So without further ado, can you guys introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and how the whole financial journey started?
Sure. As mentioned, my name is Nelsy Rivera. This is my husband, Christian Rivera. And we've been married almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in July. And we started out our financial journey before we got married. We're coming from families that don't have a lot of income, and they certainly don't have any disposable income. So we went into planning our wedding knowing that if we were going to have a wedding, we would have to plan that ourselves. We would have to save some money, we would have to budget, we would have to make some sacrifices to be able to have a wedding. And we didn't have a huge, lavish, $100,000.
It was at our wedding, Jasmine.
Yeah.
I went to the wedding though. It was still a very nice wedding. So when our minds are ooh, lavish, but it was a nice wedding. It nobody can say that anything was lacking in the wedding. So you guys did a great job.
But we did budget, and so there was a lot of budgeting. Chris is a haggler, really, really good haggling prices and flowers and things. And so as we were planning our wedding, I think was the first time that we really kind of cemented we make a good team, I'm really good with planning and writing everything out, and you're really good with just haggling and looking for ways that we can save money. And so that was kind of the first sort of financial project that we took on. So we paid for our wedding. We saved for about 9 months. We paid for our entire wedding ourselves. We also budgeted the money that we would need to get into our own apartment. We weren't living together, so we had to get an apartment. We had to plan for a honeymoon. All of that came from us. We saved all of that money within the 9-10 month period.
And I think it's important to say that during that time, we didn't even make a lot of money. We didn't make money at all. And we were looking at this wedding, and to us at the moment, it was this biggest expense. Where are we going to come out with all this money? But we quickly learned that cutting down on costs, cutting down on things that we were doing during that time, really helped us find that money.
That's awesome that you guys say that, because a lot of times when you hear the word budget, and sometimes you're like, budget, but
it almost sounds like, oh, I don't get to have fun.
Right. But you guys were pretty much just saying hey, just look at your life and look at what you do have available. You don't have to have crazy amount of money. Look at what you have available and then figure out what can you cut or where can you, hey, I'm gonna sacrifice this so I can save it for my wedding, which is gonna be something that's important to you.
And I think to Antonio's point, because a lot of people do think of budgeting as, well, YOLO and, let's do that and, I think the important thing is to remember that it's not really about, well, let's not have fun because we're going to budget. You have to think of it as, let's kind of shift our priorities for now. Our priority is that we have this goal that we want to get to. And then once we're done with that, if this is still really important, and a lot of times it's not, it's important at the moment. When you let it go, you're like, do I really need to go to Starbucks 5 times a week? You bring it down to 1 time a week, and then you realize, I was spending so much money on Starbucks, and it's not really bringing me joy to my life, saving for this goal. And so I think that you just have to kind of change the way that you think about budget. It's not, let's not live. It's just, let's kind of shift our priorities. And maybe this is going to bring me more joy, more satisfaction, more gratification than what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which they kind of, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll tell you. I think that a lot of people, if you're lucky enough to be doing this or saving money to buy a house with someone else, the communication, the conversation aspect of, oh, maybe we should limit down on Starbucks. Like, we actually have to have a conversation about, are we drinking too much Starbucks? Are we drinking too much coffee? It sounds ridiculous.
You gotta live in New York, though.
Yes, just, almost got to the bank. We're spending this much amount of money. We need to, back down on this, and that's what we have to do. If that's what we have to do, it's not really. I guess it depends on the person. It's not really a loss to us.
Right.
If we're drinking that much, we want to limit it down. We're drinking it every week and every other week. So.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. I love that. You only live once, YOLOs. That reminded me of that saying when they say, hey, you live today like no one else, so you can live tomorrow like no one else. So yes, you only live once. What kind of life do you want to live once? Is it a life where you don't necessarily have what you need? Or is it a life where you take a small break and you sacrifice for a moment, but later you're going to have, this extravagant life? It doesn't have to be extravagant now, but it could be later.
And I think to that point, Jasmine, it's important to also note that just in American culture, we don't really think of anything like we're gonna do this first and then we'll get a reward later. We live in a society where you want to eat, go to the drive-thru. It's gonna take a minute and a half, and it's all like instant gratification.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that it's our fault. It's just that is just the way it's woven into American culture that. You want something, go get it. Go get it now. You want this, you go get it.